World War II showed one of the worst facets of humanity. The brutality experienced in those years left scars that are still not completely healed and that are still being studied. One of the most abhorrent and silenced crimes of that conflict is the systematic abuse suffered by German women at the hands of Soviet, American and British soldiers. In this new military history video, we want to shed light on these terrible facts. But before we continue, we are very happy to tell you that this video is sponsored by BORRAR, an incredible tool that will help you protect all your data on the internet. It is not news that all our information is available to anyone on the internet, and that happens because there are brokers that are in charge of compiling all your information and selling it to other companies or people who request it to offer you something, spam you, or for even worse reasons. BORRAR will identify these brokers and remove all your private information. It will even remove you from spam and robocall lists. BORRAR also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in a data breach and exposed on the dark web, and gives you recommendations on what to do. Plus, it has a VPN, password manager, credit monitoring, and just about every internet security tool you'll ever need, all in one app. You can register using my code, borrar.com/militaryhistory, or by scanning the QR on the screen, and try the application for 2 weeks, completely free of charge. Check how many brokers share your information and don't wait any longer to protect it. You can thank me later. I'll leave the links for you in the description and in the comments. And now, let's continue with today's video. Before we start, we want to warn you that in this video we'll be talking about really brutal sex crimes, with numbers that can be shocking. While those kinds of situations are part of the horror of war, we prefer to warn you about the harshness of these stories. Even so, we assure you that they will be counted with the respect they deserve. During the last year of World War II, as the Allies closed in on the heart of the Third Reich, hundreds of thousands of German women were raped. Subsequent studies indicated that the vast majority of these crimes were committed by Soviet troops, although there are records of American, British, and French soldiers taking part in such abuses. In general, these cases were silenced and remained an open secret for almost the entire 20th century. According to historian Antony Beevor, whose books were banned in 2015 at some Russian schools and universities, the NKVD, the Soviet Union's secret police, was aware of these events but did little to prevent the soldiers' behavior. Usually it was the rear units that committed the most crimes against German women. These actions were taken as a patriotic act and encouraged by propaganda. The Soviet writer Ilya Ehrenberg wrote to the soldiers, "Use force and break the racial pride of German women, take them as your fair spoils of war." The exact number of German women who suffered abuse at the hands of Soviet soldiers is unknown, but some sources estimate the number to be in the hundreds of thousands. Other more pessimistic figures bring the number closer to 2 million. During World War II, the first records of sexual assaults within German territory date back to October 21, 1944, when Red Army troops crossed the Angrapa River on the border between Germany and Poland. That same day the Soviets carried out the Nemmersdorf massacre, in which 71 people died, among them many women who, before being shot, suffered all kinds of harassment. One of the most aberrational facts was offered by the historian William Hitchcock. According to his research, in many cases the women suffered more than one attack. In the most severe cases, they could be victims of up to 70 abuses in a very short period of time, causing unwanted pregnancies and epidemics of sexually transmitted diseases. Some 100,000 women are believed to have been abused in Berlin, raising the need for medical care and abortions in hospital reports in the German city. In short, it was a health catastrophe, with some 10,000 deaths registered as a result of medical intervention related to sexual abuse. It is estimated that, in total, 240,000 women died from some type of sexual assault. Not all the sources of the Second World War are historians who see the past through the eyes of the present. The testimonies of the people who lived through the terrible moment are also of great value. One of the most valuable is the diary of the young Ukrainian Lieutenant Vladimir Gelfand, who was among the Soviet troops surrounding the German capital in 1945. One of the most shocking passages was written on April 25. The lieutenant was walking along the Spree River when he ran into a group of German women carrying suitcases and old clothes. In poor German, he asked them why they were running away from their homes. The women tearfully told him that at least 20 Russian soldiers had attacked them the night before and had taken turns abusing them. But sexual violence was not a monopoly of the Red Army. American soldiers were guilty of similar terrible crimes, although on a smaller scale. Author J. Robert Lilly claims that there were 11,040 cases of rape by U.S. soldiers. The most brutal occurred during the U.S. occupation of France after the Normandy landings. Many of the American attacks on Germany were mob and at gunpoint, adding a sadistic spice to their crime. From the high command of the United States Army, laws were established against fraternization between its soldiers and German women, but within the force the phrase copulation without conversation is not fraternization became popular, an ironic way of referring to sexual attacks. Osmar White was an Australian correspondent who accompanied American troops during the war. In his texts, he describes how each case was treated depending on the unit. In some cases, the aggressor was identified, tried by court-martial, and punished. The most brutal and sadistic cases received the maximum penalty of firing squad. The problem is that most of the trials were against African American soldiers. I know very well that many of the attacks were carried out by white soldiers. In those cases, there were no major consequences. Among countries with soldiers guilty of sex crimes, the UK seems to have been the most active in conducting military trials. The British military police investigated the cases, and if serious, they proceeded to a court-martial. The only problem is that drunkenness and post-traumatic stress disorder were seen as viable excuses to reduce the rapist's sentence, so many British attackers received minimal reprimands. An especially aberrational case is that of the French soldiers, who committed crimes quite similar to those of the Red Army. There are official documents that record the number of rapes in different German towns. The figures range from 300 to 600 cases per region, but the chilling fact is that a few thousand women lived in those places, so a huge percentage of the female population was the victim of these attacks. As within the United States Army, the blame was mainly placed on soldiers of Moroccan origin or one of the French colonies. According to historical studies, it is estimated that a total of 1,500 children were born as a result of the rapes carried out by French soldiers. Although the son of a soldier was considered a citizen of France, in general the parents did not take charge and the children became part of the smoking ruins of the German cities. One of the main obstacles to studying these crimes is that for years they were silenced and the testimonies dismissed, as they came from German women who were supposed to be former members of the Nazi Party. There was a notion that since the Third Reich had committed some of the most heinous crimes in history, any kind of revenge on its people was valid. In post-war Germany, especially in West Germany, the stories of these sexual abuses gradually became a central point in the historical debate, generating the most varied opinions. This is how we come to the end of this video. We thank you again for joining us to learn about some of the most obscure facts in history. We'll meet again in the next episode of Military History.